start, I will just very, very quickly reintroduce myself. So Debra Nicholl, I'm the CEO of Elder Rights Advocacy, or ERA, and at ERA we deliver the National Aged Care Advocacy Program across Victoria, as well as the Aged Care Volunteer Visitors Scheme, which connects isolated older people. And we know that isolation is a key factor in elder abuse, so it is very important that people are connected. And the Visitors Scheme does that for older people. We exist at ERA to ensure that the voice of the older person is heard, that their human rights are respected, and that they receive services that meet their individual diverse needs and preferences. And as I said earlier, we are a founding member of the Older Persons Advocacy Network, or OPAN. I'm very pleased again to be here today to launch the Gender Lens for Elder Abuse Prevention and Response. As I think Jess Hill was saying, issues have their moment, and this has to be a moment for elder abuse and for older women to be heard, to be seen. Older women are more likely to experience violence and abuse. It's not a surprise when we consider the statistics on the violence against women. 1 in 3 women have experienced physical violence. 1 in 5 sexual assault. A woman is killed by an intimate partner every 10 days. I can barely say that. It is so shocking to me. In response, we have a national plan to end violence against women and their children, as Yumi has spoken to earlier. The plan outlines every aspect of violence responses and prevention from a gender lens. The violence and abuse against women, however, does not stop on their 65th birthday. In fact, they face additional risk factors and vulnerabilities, including ageism, as we've already discussed. What is different, though, is that we do suddenly stop taking a gender lens to violence and abuse prevention when a woman turns 65. The World Health Organization acknowledges ageism as a major risk factor for elder abuse and says ageism is also the reason why elder abuse prevention has been a low global priority. This raises so many questions. Just a couple that I have, given the work that we do at Elder Rights. Has ageism also prevented us from taking a gender lens to our work on elder abuse? And do we think that older people are genderless? Catherine has already discussed that earlier today. The World Health Organization again tells us that gender-specific approaches do matter, just as we consider how elder abuse prevention needs to be viewed through a Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander or culturally and linguistically diverse or queer lens. We need a gender lens that helps us understand the vulnerabilities, perceptions, and service needs and elder abuse prevention. Now, I may be reading something that we've already said today, but I think it's fine for us to repeat this. It's such an important note. Why do we need a gender lens? Because policies are developed without consideration of gender, or which are considered gender neutral or gender blind. Policies assume that gender is not a factor in how a particular issue affects people. However, existing inequality, as well as gender norms and stereotypes, can mean policy changes which may appear gender neutral and have disproportionate or different impacts on people because of their gender. So the gender lens will have 3 parts. First part, we need to consider older women are the lowest income earning family group. 34% of single older women live in poverty. 60% leave paid work with no super. 60% rely entirely on an old age pension. 40% increase in homelessness, and this, again, another shocking statistic. We've seen an increase in the homelessness of older women. Older women are more likely to experience workplace discrimination. 758,000 older women are unpaid carers. I'm one of them. I'm here today with my granddaughter in the other room. promising me she'll be nice and quiet. Older women are more likely to be sexually assaulted. And unfortunately, in the work that we do hear about that quite regularly. We will hear, on our intake phone line about cases where older women have been sexually assaulted. If the older woman in question has a cognitive impairment, we also often hear, don't worry, they won't remember, it won't affect them. So again, incredibly shocking and completely inappropriate. Next slide. I think we've got another couple of slides there. So part 2, gender analysis. So of course, we'll do the analysis, clarify gender inequalities and intersectionality, collect data on gender, review that data, develop a plan, importantly, implement the plan, evaluate and promote systemic change. Part 3 will be gender-specific responses to prevention, early intervention, response, and importantly, recovery and healing. So we very strongly encourage you to provide some feedback on the draft. The gender lens is now available in draft on the Embolden webpage with a survey to capture your valuable feedback. Please take time to participate in the survey. We will launch the final version of the gender lens on November 25th. And so your participation would be greatly appreciated. I would now like to hand over to Geoff Rowe, who is the CEO of ADA Australia. Over to you, Geoff.
As Deb said, I'm the CEO of Aged and Disability Advocacy Australia, or ADA, for obvious reasons. We are a Queensland-based organisation delivering the National Aged Care Advocacy Program, about half the state for the Care Finder program, a number of disability advocacy services across Queensland, and 4 community legal services, particularly focusing on people with impaired capacity. If I suppose I was going to start with the quote from the Department of Prime Minister and Cabinet, and I won't give it to you a third time. I think you get what it's about. My message is that a gender lens must be applied in any elder abuse response, for women, for men, for trans people, and gender diverse. I think we make an error if we just focus on a gender lens, because there are a number of other lenses that kick in, and certainly cultural. And I know some of the program that you've got over these couple of days are including a diversity perspective. And the other, and again, I'm showing I'm from Queensland, is a geographic lens, because the sort of service that you get if you live at Doomadgee up in the Gulf, which is a First Nations community, or in Brisbane, your options open to you are very different. But a gender lens is something that, by and large, is it really is something that hasn't come into the equation a great deal. We certainly talk about focusing on the individual, engaging with the individual and being instructed, informed by the individual, and getting them to identify who is their support person or the go-to person. And I think one of the things we see time and time again, that a lot of the institutions will go to the statutory authority, whether it's someone's attorney under the enduring power of attorney, or whether it's a state or territory instrument, rather than asking the older person who is best placed to support you. We know that a lot of the abuse that ADA sees occurs in the context of the very instruments that are designed to protect people. So the enduring powers of attorney, the guardianship arrangements. We also know that many people make an enduring power of attorney at a time when really they're thinking about making a will, and the solicitor says, how about we get an EPOA done at the same time? So people don't necessarily really give much thought to who it is, and often will go to the default, it should be my son or my daughter. They don't even think of partners, because the assumption is that by the time we need an EPOA. Our partners will be long gone. Such is our relationship with the ageing process, and our relationship is with death. In 2018, I was fortunate to be awarded a Churchill Fellowship to look at the prevention and response to elder abuse in aged care in the community. And that took me across the world, looking at what was happening in the US, in Canada, in Alaska, in England and Scotland, as well as New Zealand. And my desire to do a fellowship was around a feeling that our response to elder abuse was 20 years out of date. We were 20 years behind what was happening in the domestic and family violence space. And we knew that, for those working in the domestic and family violence space, that many people didn't feel that we were doing as well as we could do. So if we're going back 20 years, and I know a number of people here today will have been around this space for a very long time, we really have a long way to go. There is a lot that we don't know. Actually, I wanted to just share before I get into that. Catherine asked me if I could just share some of our elder abuse statistics. And one of the things that ADA has been doing has been recording gender as well as the number of cases, even though we haven't been, apparently we haven't been publishing them in our annual reports. So we talk about elder abuse cases as being those cases that occur in the context of abuse by family members. Some of the abuse that happens within the institutional environment, within aged care, be it from another resident or staff, we tend to count that under our aged care processes, and it's probably something we need to rethink and separate out. In the last financial year, we supported 257 individuals for those elder abuse cases. So that's where someone was in residential care and they're being abused primarily by their power of attorney, their son, their daughter, their partner. Some of that is financial abuse. Some of it certainly is sexual abuse, emotional abuse. We really cover the full spectrum. Interestingly, it's almost been a 50-50 split. I think we had 49% of the people we supported were males and 51% female. When we look at our aged care cases, we supported nearly 3,900 individuals across Queensland, and only 40% of those were males and 60% females. Again, we're talking about people who are over 65, not that younger cohort. There's a lot we don't know about elder abuse, and certainly I know you've been talking about some of the options that are out there, what government's response has been. When we talk about, or when we hear government talking about how do we respond to elder abuse, we often hear them talk about doing research, doing mapping, doing counting. And I guess I get really frustrated with that, because it's a bit like if we had a house on fire, would government be saying, let's go and do some planning about how many fire engines we need, what do we need to do them to more appropriately respond? And I guess for me, one of the things I'd like people to talk about going forward is not only how do we respond and improve the gender lens, but how do we start investing in those services now so that we can actually get some action research happening as well. Both can happen in unison. We know elder abuse is underreported. A stat picked up from the New York Elder Abuse Centre. They've just done some research where they found 1 in 24 instances of elder abuse were actually reported. So there's significant underreporting. Aware that I'm up against time, so I'm going to be really quick from here, but really some challenges I'd like to see you think about and consider. We know ageism is alive and well. We know institutional abuse is a significant contributor, both the health system and the aged care system. There's a lack of understanding of the roles of the attorney. Somehow or other, they're often seen as God, and they're often those who are doing the abuse, whether it's to male, female, other genders. the absence of human rights, together with ageism, just within that aged care system, has really just supported that abuse. I think Deb tried to touch on it, but one of the things we know about elder abuse is that the perpetrators is a much broader cohort than just the perpetrators of domestic and family violence. We're talking sons, daughters, we're talking neighbours, we're talking grandchildren. So a much broader cohort. And often there is that very significant emotional embarrassment that I have raised these people, these are my children, therefore I must have done something wrong. So more work to be done. I think I really would like to see, and look, there's an opportunity to read, if you're interested, my Churchill Fellowship report. If you go to the Churchill Fellowship website, type in elder abuse, it should come up with that report. And I've made a range of recommendations, which I just don't have time to cover. The opportunities, we need to recognise that when we talk about older people, it's not this stationary cohort. We've got currently a movement from what's known as the grateful generation to the baby boomers. No one's ever described the baby boomers as being grateful. They're a cohort of people, if they don't like something, they generally try and change it. So I think we have an opportunity to get on that wave. There's a new Aged Care Act, which is being hopefully rolled out soon, which includes human rights for the first time. So again, some more opportunities. We're seeing more of an engagement with the domestic and family violence sector. So, again, an opportunity to progress that. And I guess finally, as a community, we're talking more about elder abuse than ever before, and this is a great example. So thanks for the opportunity.